What was the initial thought process when it came to separating these into all these chapters? What was the amount of story that you really wanted to kind of get out there, or is it just moments and pictures of how you wanted certain things to happen and they couldn't happen 10 times in a row, kind of thing?
It was really the story. When approaching doing The Strangers, which is a beloved movie in the first place in the horror community and even beyond, as I've come to learn, because it's kind of a movie that spread a little bit to the GA audience as well, because it's so accessible, because we all know those people are out there, and that type of thing happens all the time. We see it on the news. Hopefully it never happens to us, but it just makes it real horror, and that's what I always liked about it. So it was the story. I was sort of fascinated from the original with what makes these people wearing that mask and doing those type of things tick. What's really going on there. I think we all have a certain fascination with serial killers, which effectively, they end up being. And, I feel like at the same time, I always want to not just see a protagonist that glosses over in a horror movie. It's been a dream of mine to actually do one where actually we're with that character as if this shit was really happening to them, and how that would actually change them. In other words, you don't just pick up a knife and stab somebody. It takes a minute, if you were a normal person 24 hours earlier, to even consider really doing something like that, because we are all, conditioned to not do stuff like that under any circumstances. So what brings you to the point that you might? How horrible is that experience psychologically, physically, and emotionally? So these were sort of the primary places that we started, and staying in that very real and raw Strangers verse that was created in the original Strangers from 2008. So when we got to writing it, it turned into a 289-page script to actually tell that story and spend that time. So we're like, well, that's the story we want to make. So that's what we did, and then subsequently, we always knew in our heads when we were doing it, it would have to be divided up because it's just too damn long to play as one movie. But that's where it comes from. It was story and character all the way in. I think one thing people are really going to enjoy when they watch all three chapters is that there's a real character change, and you get to see it both from antagonist and protagonist point of view. So it's not just following the general protagonist. The two actually have something going on.
And when it comes to serial killers, it's always more of a singular thing too. Was there ever any thought about kind of creating the backstory of how these people came about? Because it's always rural areas, but it doesn't necessarily have to be, I guess, or maybe it does. I don't know what the science is on that either. But what was the thought process that you were talking about the antagonists themselves too, like how you were trying to figure out who they are and where they came from, and then to be able to change as part of growing in either way.
So in a very realistic way, we do actually jump timelines during chapter 2 and chapter 3 and actually go to different points in history that actually give you insight into that exact thing that you're talking about, that are separate. Sort of think of it as if you watch Godfather 2 and you were watching how the Godfather became the Godfather in 1917, but at the same time you were watching Al Pacino's storyline. Not quite that literally, but absolutely. We also go back, and yet we leave in a stranger's way a lot to your imagination, but we're talking more about the psychological and a glimpse inside, and then actually we do give you a moment where you get to have a look directly with them and hear just a little bit about where that mind is, without in any way it actually saying to you, this is how I became a serial killer, because we wouldn't do it like that, because that's not interesting. It's more where that mind is that makes you go, damn, that's dark.
Right.
So we do
Yeah,
that. Yeah.
I have to let you go, but I do want to ask, can you tell us anything about Red Sonja? I saw that on IMDb, it says post-production already. Can you tell us anything about it? Because that was, a beloved one as well, but it was more, even though it was Brigitte, it was also very much an Arnold vehicle. So in this world now, is it more female empowered? Is it more along the storylines,
I mean, the
following
script is
her?
definitely more female empowered for sure, and Red Sonja is an amazing female empowered character, and especially, with Red Sonja's backstory. So no question about it. They're still finishing the film, and MJ's still finishing the film. I didn't have, my partner Mark had more direct involvement with that. We sort of trade off sometimes. I was shooting The Strangers at the same time that we were shooting that in Bulgaria. So obviously I've seen the cuts and been along the way, but not as intimately involved. And they're just finishing off what is literally, I think, like 3,000 effect shots in that movie. So I'm hoping that we're going to see a cut of it sometime in the next couple of months, is what I hear.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully
Yeah.
we'll get a chance to see some kind of nerdy or cosplay options at Comic-Con this year too. Who knows?
You mean
Thank
with
you very
stranger's
much.
mask or Red Sonja, or like
Both.
Red Sonja wearing
Both.
a stranger's mask?
Both. We'll fill up Spirit Halloween. It's all good. Thank you very much. Have a good day.
Thank you. Take care.